Welcome to the Miami Dolphins Football Unites International Women's Day event presented by Pepsi, Stronger Together. My name is Frances Wang. I am the CBS Miami morning anchor and reporter, and I will also be your host and your panel moderator for the evening. A little bit about myself before we begin. I'm originally from California, and I've been here in South Florida for about 2-ish years. I'm absolutely loving it. If I was going to leave one sunny coast for another sunny place, it would have been here. And as my friends like to say, I left the land of Disneyland for the land of Disney World. Fun fact, I've actually been to every Disney park in the world. That is something I'm very proud of, and the fun fact I like to share when I am introducing myself. All right, I was really excited to be in a room full of a bunch of bomb women. I still am. I was expecting a huge crowd, but of course, it's a pandemic and we have to adjust. And just shout out to the Miami Dolphins crew because they were able to adjust really quickly. All right, a little more about the event we are having here today. Miami Dolphins Football Unites is a program to recognize the contributions and the impact that women have here in South Florida to make our community a healthier space, more educated, and more united. All right, so we have a fun program for you guys today, but we are going to start with the perfect person to kick off this Women's History Month event, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. As many of you know, she is the first female mayor in Miami-Dade County. A little bit about her, if you guys don't already know. There's been a lot of events introducing her, but of course we have to recap. She was born in New York and raised partly in Latin America. She got her bachelor's in psychology with honors from Yale and graduate degrees in law and social work from Columbia University. When I read this, the first thing I thought to myself was my Chinese mother is going to be like, Frances, why don't you have all these credentials? First thing I thought. All right, now before she entered the political realm in 2014, she spent about 4 decades advocating for South Florida children and their families. A little bit about what she does now. She leads more than 28,000 employees, manages an annual budget of nearly $9 billion, and serves nearly 3 million residents. Now, not only did she take office last November, but of course she had to take lead of the local response to the COVID-19 pandemic efforts and overseeing all of the efforts to provide much needed relief to a lot of struggling families and businesses right now. So timely, she will actually be receiving the Women Making History Award this week from the Florida Association of Women Lawyers. Shout out to them. They were supposed to be in attendance tonight, but of course we want to acknowledge them anyway. So please welcome Miami-Dade's first ever Madam Mayor Daniela Levine Cava.
Thank you so much.
We'll still clap, even though it's virtual.
Thank you. Well, it is great to be celebrating Women's History Month and Monday, International Women's Day, with fabulous women. Thank you so much, Frances, for that great introduction. First woman mayor, Miami-Dade County, and I just love that we're celebrating it in Women's Month because little girls everywhere think it's normal, right? I may be the first, but I won't be the last. So here we are with the great Dolphins organization that's putting on today's event. And Dolphins is known for diversity, equity, and inclusion with women, people of color, across the board, things that we all support and hold dear. So we want to give a special shout out to the Dolphins, the first black we have a lead coach. We've got a first woman coming in for communications, Ann Nolan, not quite here, but we celebrate her. And across the board, Dolphins is investing in all kinds of community activities that lift up our diverse communities. And here in sunny South Florida, we are the most diverse place in the world, and it is very fitting and proper that the Dolphins organization is at the forefront of making sure that we lift up all of our diverse communities. So really excited to be with all of you. And for the program, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my shiro, personal shiro, like my little granddaughter, 3-year-old Lena said, she practiced it. I'm small but mighty, just like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So wonderful to be with all of you. Thank you so much, Frances.
And it's nice meeting you in person. I feel like, I'm sure you guys feel like you've known her for some time now, from the campaigning to actually winning. And so it's nice to actually meet you in person, Mayor Cava. Mayor Daniela.
That. Mayor Daniela, please, yes, Daniela is good. And people in the street say, hi, Daniela. I love it.
Do you like it?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now in addition to Mayor Cava, we wanted to shout out and acknowledge some of the elected officials who were supposed to be with us here today. Councilwoman Katrina Wilson from the City of Miami Gardens and founder of the annual Miami Gardens Women's Exposition. Councilwoman Linda Julian, the City of Miami Gardens' first Haitian American council member. Councilwoman Shannon Igadara, who has empowered female entrepreneurs for years. And Councilwoman Shannon Campbell, who has dedicated her career to championing and empowering the youth. So a special shout out to those women who were supposed to be here with us. We also want to acknowledge some of our special guests, the amazing women of Breakthrough Miami, NVEE, YWCA, Women of Tomorrow, Be Strong International, Urban League, Honeyshine, North Miami Beach PAL, the employees and cheerleaders of the Miami Dolphins, and we have veterans that we wanted to acknowledge as well who were supposed to be in attendance. Of course, thank you for your service. And now we have a special message to you all from former Dolphins cheerleader and now NFL sportscaster and host of NFL Total Access, Miami's very own, a trailblazer herself, MJ Acosta.
Hello, Dolphins fam. I'm MJ Acosta Ruiz, the host of NFL Total Access here at the NFL Network, and of course, former Miami Dolphins cheerleader. Happy International Women's Day. I'm so excited to be able to celebrate it with you, even if we're a little bit far apart here virtually. I'm part of a very, very incredible group of women here at the NFL Network who continue to shatter glass ceilings on a daily basis. Take our show here, NFL Total Access, every day. Our showrunner, Leah Villette, our director, Sarah Reese, two of our producers, Jen Koski and Aisha Cheney, and countless other women who are behind the scenes that nobody gets to see, but trust me, keep this show going on a daily basis. And of course, here at the NFL, we have our Women's Interactive Network, which is actually run by our showrunner, Leah Villette, as well, doing incredible work to keep us unified and to amplify the female voices across the NFL. It has been so empowering to be part of this. Sisterhood always been a big part of my life, both in broadcast and in my passions, like when I was part of the Miami Dolphins cheerleader team. It was an incredible experience, really around some of the most unbelievable and accomplished women I have ever met in my life. I hope that you truly enjoy the program that Miami Dolphins have put together for you today and continue to lift our voices and, of course, to continue to make us all proud every single day in each of your avenues. And, of course, you have a sister in me. If ever you need something, you know where to find me. Enjoy the celebration. Enjoy being part of this Miami Dolphins family.
All right, before we begin our panel and introducing our panelists, wanted to acknowledge that the elected officials are here. It's hard to know who's here and who's not with our situation, but of course we are adapting as we have to do. All right, so first we want to introduce Rashanal Hamilton. She is currently the Senior Director of Community Relations and Youth Programs for the Miami Dolphins. She oversees outreach, diversity and inclusion, as well as youth initiatives. She has a master's from Virginia Commonwealth University in sports leadership. And she has a very diverse career in sports, working for various organizations from Monumental Sports and Entertainment to the Charlotte Bobcats to the Atlanta Hawks. She's experienced in everything from group sales to PR to marketing. And something I found out while researching her is she's also a basketball star, which was not included, but I feel like we have to acknowledge that. So thank you so much, Rashanal, for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next up, we want to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Deweliah Turner, but you like to go by
Dewey.
So
That's
we're going to go with Dewey. She enlisted in the Air Force in 1997 and within just 5 years was selected for the Airmen and Education Commissioning Program on full scholarship, earning a Bachelor of Science in Meteorology from the University of Hawaii, which I'm told was beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, she then commissioned into the Air Force as a meteorologist, serving in multiple roles, including overseeing weather operations for former President Obama's Air Force One. She then attended the Naval Postgraduate School and received a Master of Arts in Security Studies. And her husband did not want me to forget that she graduated with distinguished honors as well. She has been deployed twice to Bosnia and Afghanistan, and she is now stationed at the United States Southern Command and is the Chief of Women, Peace, and Security Program. Something else, too, that your husband wanted us to know, not to diminish your accomplishments at all, was that you were born in New York but raised in Brazil, moved back to the U.S. when you were 19, and that's when you learned English.
That's right.
Absolutely amazing. All right, so give it up for our second guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then last but not least, we have Dr. Paula Hopkins. She oversees all sales and operations as the general manager for PepsiCo Beverages Company here in South Florida. That includes 4 locations and over 750 employees. She holds a BA and an MBA and a doctorate from Rollins College. Her dissertation was on the impact and influence, the effect of mentorship on job advancement among executive women. She has led many diversity and inclusion efforts across Pepsi to help create a more inclusive culture. She sits on several boards throughout the community and served on the Super Bowl 54 host committee. Feels like so much longer than last year, right?
Yeah.
I had to pause myself and be like, wow, that was only just a year ago.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a great group of guests. I'm so excited, and it was great getting to know you ladies while we were still setting up and adapting to the weather issues, but I can't wait to hear more from all of you. So the theme of today's discussion is claiming your space, which I think is just such a great topic for this time. So I just want to begin with, ladies, how do you claim your space in the workplace? Did you always feel comfortable doing so, or what did it take for you to get to that point? Let's just start with you, Rashanal.
Sure. So I think that claiming, the space in the workplace is super unique when you work for a sports property, right? Being a woman in football, I mean, we have just gotten to the point where college is available and accessible for female flag football players, but I find myself being in the room with a lot of men counterparts and colleagues, and specifically what I do is working with the youth and high school coaches. And so I find that I am one of the only female voices sometimes in the room. So claiming my space was really about finding my confidence in those moments and being willing to have my voice heard, and knowing that my skills and my abilities were going to shine when I had the opportunity.
And I feel like all you ladies, we're all in male-dominated industries to this day.
Yeah.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
In my case, for sure, it's different. I joined in the Air Force. I wanted to have a science job, eventually became a meteorologist. So it's already a male-dominated domain, and then science as well. So very often, like you, I was the only woman in the room. But that really, for claiming my space, was less about thinking I am the only woman in the room, but thinking I really want to be the best scientist in the room, and going sometimes the extra mile. It's a balance of working smart, but working hard too, always being prepared, always willing, when everybody's fatigued, I still have the extra, I think we share that, right? Like you just go a little bit further, everybody's falling asleep, I'm like, 2 more hours, I can get this briefing perfect. So little by little, that creates the credibility, and you start claiming that space where people really rely on you, not because you're a woman, but because you're a teammate, maybe the best at what you do.
Yep. I agree. I think for me, it was a little bit different. I think what's really awesome about working for a corporation that actually believes in the value and getting gender equity, getting gender pay equity, when you find a company that you can actually build and actually push through your purpose and build relationships internally and externally, it makes it a lot easier. So 1, proud to be in the organization, but 2, I think there's enough room at the table for all of us to have a plate, right? We may have to sit closer, definitely, and make sure we have all of our values that come forward through us.
Did you ladies always feel comfortable, or do you feel like it took time, or it took certain accomplishments, improving yourself to get to that point where you felt like you could claim your space?
Yeah. I think for me, it took time. I'm a big proponent of mentorship and sponsorship. Having a village actually to get you through that moment and that day matters, especially for women, especially for women of color as well. I don't want to discount that, especially with the panel up here. So there's moments that I had to lean on my mentors and my sponsors, and believe it or not, my biggest shero was actually my mom, who never worked in corporate America, but can balance the hell of a P&L. She raised 4 kids as a single mom, and she did it better than any CEO in America. So focusing on that, having relationships, and just having someone you can look up to is what helped me.
And Lieutenant Turner, we'll start with you for this question. What do you consider the major milestones or the key accomplishments on your career? And was there ever a point that you felt like you made it? Or do you still feel like you are working towards I made it? Because I know, especially as women, women of color, as you said, a lot of times we feel like we're always having to keep going. and once you get to that point where maybe other people might have think you made it, maybe you're still like, okay, what's next, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a process for sure. I come from the enlisted ranks. I didn't start as an officer. So I didn't start with a college education. I had to work towards that. So there was always that ambition of I could do a little bit better, and what does it take to get there? And once I get there, then there's something else that I feel, okay, so what if I had this job now as a meteorologist, perhaps for President Obama's, Air Force One. So the sense of accomplishment, I mean, I have these milestones that in many ways, as you said, I stand on the shoulders of many mentors. There were many times that I wanted to take the coat off and say, I'm done. And that's when you call your mentors and they lift you up and carry you when you're down, and you just keep going. So the milestones are always there. The accomplishments are now. At this point, I feel I'm in a comfortable place. I am confident. I have learned a lot. I feel I'm performing well. And I have learned lessons such as before, when I was much younger, always sitting in the back of the room, afraid to sit at the table. Nobody was telling me to not sit at the table. But it got to a point that I had to decide, okay, really, there's a chair and I can take it and sit at the table, and that confidence keeps building and building. So it's a balance of having the support, having an organization that's looking at you and say, yes, this is a valuable team player, but also ourselves saying, let me claim my space. There's a chair at the decision-making table. Can I take that chair? Yeah. Go from there.
That's great. That's great. I like to liken it as finding your voice. So now, throughout my career, it's really about how do I leave my legacy on different people. And when you talk about sitting at the table and there's a chair there, but you're scared to go into it, I call that finding your voice. We deal with a lot of microaggressions in our organization, in our Americas, believe it or not. So when you can actually speak up and actually challenge those people that have those microaggressions against a marginalized people, you actually start to make a difference. So for me, it's about using my voice for others that are coming behind me, and then of course, making sure that I leave a legacy that people can be proud of.
And do you feel like you've made it, or do you still feel like you have other goals and things you want to accomplish? And what were some of the major milestones you consider in your career?
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest competitor is myself. So every day I'm learning. One of the reasons why I went back and got my doctorate in mentorship was because there weren't a lot of studies on women of color in corporate America. And having people have obviously understanding of that mattered to me. So I grinded it out for 4.5 years and finally got conferred as far as a doctor. But more importantly for me, I'm still grinding, quite honestly. And it matters that I leave a legacy that I can be proud of personally, but more importantly, that I can help someone to make it easier for me. And they pick the table, they are actually setting the table and putting the chairs up versus finding a chair to sit in.
Rashanal, was there a time when you felt like in your career, like, all right, this is it, I'm here, Mom?
No, absolutely not. I still feel like I'm growing. I still feel like I'm trying to find opportunities. But it makes me excited because I'm starting to see more people ahead of me and more people sitting next to me that look like me and can identify with my background. And I think that's important, right? Because I think that we tend to really connect with those that really come from our communities. It's just human nature a little bit. And so when people from our communities are all sitting at these tables and opening up the doors to provide mentorship and education and knowledge, I think that's super important. So right now I'm kind of on the other end. I feel like I'm learning and meeting great women like this and using them as mentors and kind of finding out what they're doing and being able to change and adapt that to what works for me.
Yeah, so that's a common theme that all three of you brought up, right? The importance of mentorship. Is there a person you can think of who was just such a great mentor at such an important, much needed time in your life? Clearly everyone has had that person that stands out. We'll start with you, Dr. Hopkins.
Yep. So for me, outside of the organization, it was my mom. She was the one that would not let me have any pity on myself. If I didn't get the job, she told me to find out who got the job and what did they have. One of the reasons why I went to get my MBA. Just, you didn't have the credentials, go get it. And the next time around when I didn't get it, she'd say, oh, they had the same credentials, they just looked different. And she'd say, well, it wasn't your time to get it. So she always kept me balanced internally, believe it or not. And one of the things I did find through my studies is the fact that a lot of women that look like us, their mentors don't look like them. So my biggest advocate or mentor is actually, he's running Six Flags now, and he was honest with me. He was a white male. He wouldn't let me take any punches that I didn't deserve, but he gave me more than I thought I deserved, and he made me bigger and badder and stronger, quite honestly, by just being honest, being authentic with me, and telling me what I needed to hear at the most appropriate time.
That's such a good point, too, that maybe some of our mentors maybe didn't look like us,
Yep.
but we can be mentors to young girls who see us in them. I love that. Thank you, Dr. Hopkins.
Absolutely. My mentor was, believe it or not, another white male, and he was phenomenal for me. I think I came into the organization with him feeling a little timid, and he actually was the one that gave me some confidence. I think sometimes, you know, when you can't manufacture it for yourself, sometimes it helps to have an advocate for you. You know, when you're saying, we did this and we did that, and he would be the one to stop me and say, no, you did this. You accomplished this task. And I think having that cheerleader kind of gave me a little bit of confidence, but he was an absolute great mentor. When it came time for promotions or pay raises, he was in my corner and fighting for me. And he said, and I'm not doing this because you are a woman, I'm doing this because you are a great asset to this organization.
Nice.
And so I think that's what's important, is that he saw that in me and also helped to build me, but would call me out when I needed to be called out and when I needed to improve.
I think in these times with the conversations that are being had, when people say, well, what can I do to help, right? That's such a great example of the importance of not just mentorship, but allyship in the newsroom or in the workplace. I'm so
In the
used to being in
newsroom,
the
too.
newsroom.
Yes.
And in the newsroom. Lieutenant Turner?
Yes, I think like you, there's so many mentors along, you know, in a 25-year-long career. I mean, I have to give credit to so many people. Role models, for sure. When I came back to the United States, I didn't speak English. I lived with my aunt, Tia Alba, who was a single mother, raised 3 children. She spoke Spanish, and I spoke Portuguese, but she wanted me to learn English, so she made a point to only speak to me in English at the house so that I could practice. And in seeing her success, she worked for General Electric. She had a beautiful home, all that she did by herself with so much grace and poise. I think that was basically launching me into the United States in a way that I had really this huge role model. Throughout my career, again, I have had also male, you know, mentors. I remember when I said I want to take my coat off, I sent an email to a colonel, retired now, Colonel Rice, thanking him for the time he spent with me and saying I was at the Pentagon. It was a very hard job. I said, thank you so much. I am quitting. I am dropping it. And he was in Afghanistan. He called me within 5 minutes and he said, what are you thinking? And he helped me, you know, put me against the wall. He said, you need to think about what you're doing. And really, here I am many years later. And then there's not only that figure, but also right now, as the Chief of Women, Peace and Security, we run a program in integrating women in the military, not only in the US, but also with our partners in the Western Hemisphere. And I must say, one of my biggest mentors is my teammate. She's younger than me, but she is always there with the thinking head, bringing, you know, like, hey, what? So this we strategize together. So finding mentors can be, you know, it's so diverse. It's really, you're very blessed if you can find one. And I just must say one more thing. I have heard in the past people say, well, I never had a mentor. One of my mentors that actually also helped me along has been Colin Powell in reading his books. I met him once actually for a signing of a book, but having someone that you look up to and mentors through the reading or the way that they speak, you know, someone, a public figure can be a mentor as well. It doesn't necessarily need to be someone that's there next to you that has your phone number to call you. So it's very important. We also take the responsibility to cultivate those relationships of mentorship. Extremely important.
And sometimes all it takes is one, you know, just one person who believes in you and keeps you going when you want to quit or want to give up. And it seems like all of us have been blessed to have more than one, so we're very lucky in that sense. And ladies, okay, so it's 2021, obviously social media is a thing, right? And I notice, you know, everyone posts their highlight reel. You know, you post the positives when you get a new job, when you win an award, all good things. But something that we don't show enough of, I think, is our behind the scenes. And with you three being such successful women in your industries, I'm wondering, was there a time behind the scenes that maybe people don't really know about, a time that you almost gave up, a time that you were like, I don't know if I can keep doing this? And if there was, how did you get out of that place?
Yeah. I think I love the title of our panel, by the way, Claiming Your Space and Claiming Her Space. One of the things that I would probably tell people, and what I tell my younger self, and I've been in the industry for 35 years now, is that when you can bring your whole self to work, it is so much more fun. I mean, Maya Angelou's poem says, success is liking what you're doing, liking who you are, and liking how you do it. Once I learned that, and it took me probably 20 years to be able to bring my whole self to work and not hide my hair, who I was, or how I talked, or where I came from. And once I started celebrating that in others, it became so much more fun. So for me, what I didn't probably post was that my upbringing, obviously, we went to food banks. So now when I go back and give to food banks, I was that person standing in line. It's a personal story for me that I love sharing now, because I can actually tell the person in line when I hand them their bag or their loaf of bread to say, I was you. And it took this, a person believing, a mother that wouldn't let me give up, more schooling, more education, and then obviously years of service, not only internally, but externally, personally.
That's really personal.
Thanks.
That makes a lot of sense, and why, giving back in that sense means so much.
Yep.
I think for me, I think the struggle was, I am a lesbian woman. I'm married to another woman. And so for me, there was a very long time in my career where I felt like I couldn't say that. I felt like I couldn't bring that part of myself to work because I thought it would affect my promotions or how my coworkers looked at me, or, could I bring my wife to an event and would that be okay? And I think I finally kind of had to have a moment with myself to say, if I can't bring my whole self to my job, am I in the right job, right? Because there is a big piece of my life that's missing, that I cannot be effective for my coworkers and for my organization if I am not even walking in my own truth. And so it was an opportunity, and especially in our country, what most people don't understand is that wasn't even a protected class for employment. So there was also that, right, that job stability factor that plays a huge part in where I go. And so when I came to the Dolphins, they were ahead of their time. They actually had it in their policy, even though at the time it was not state recognized. They had it in their policy as a protected class for employment. And so I said, this is the right organization for me, and it gave me that comfort to come out. And I realized too that I want other LGBT people, right? I'm clearly a woman and clearly Black, but my sexual orientation is not necessarily on display. But I'm intentional now, right, when I speak or when I represent the organization, so that people know it's okay to represent that group and speak your truth, and you can be great at your job, and you can be judged on that and not necessarily on who you're married to or who you love or what you identify as.
That's amazing. So it was with the Dolphins. That was the first organization where you felt truly comfortable being your whole self.
Whole
all parts
self.
of you.
I think like my bosses, right, in former organizations would know, but it wasn't something that I would necessarily bring to my other coworkers, or if I was speaking on behalf of the organization, I wouldn't necessarily share that. But the Dolphins is the first place that I felt comfortable enough to bring that, and it was going to be okay.
Awesome.
Wow, I love that. Shout out to the Dolphins, and not just because they're organizing this event.
Yes, they mean it. They walk the walk. When they say it, they mean it. They do it.
Love to hear that. Lieutenant Turner, what about you?
Well, yeah, sometimes it does get messy, right? and sometimes we think, I used to think that it's a life-work balance, and it's like a Cirque du Soleil type of man. You're just, doing everything you can. And this is actually an illusion. I learned that, especially after having my babies, and now they're 3-year-olds, this whole idea that I can balance everything and that everything will be fine and perfect, and this picture, Facebook ready, Instagram, is an illusion. So I shift a little bit more of instead of life balance, more of life management. So if I am at work, at that space, I'm going to try to be 100% invested in that moment, and trust that my children are okay, they're with daddy, or they're at the daycare, and when I'm with them, I'm trying to focus on them And with my family, with my husband, does it work every time? Is it perfect? No. but it puts me a little bit more at ease that I don't have to be this perfect figure, because that is an illusion, and it just creates additional stress to what already is happening around us. So I'm comfortable with not being perfect. I'm comfortable with calling my boss and say, hey, I'm having a really hard time with a family matter. I need a day off. And I'm also okay asking my husband, hey, can you please, help me out here? I have to work until 2 a.m. getting this thing together. And forgiving myself for not being everywhere all the time, superwoman. It's okay.
Because you got to be there for you too.
Yes, I like to think in a way, we think about a servant leadership. Is in the military, we talk about a lot, servant leadership. I actually like to think of mindful leadership, which you're serving, but you're also to an extent taking the responsibility to filling up the cup so that you can serve even better. And noticing that on the people who are serving along with you, saying, hey, that person, let me just check in. You become more aware than just, when you give, and then you even become blindsided to your teammates. And, for us, it's very important to be aware. I mean, in the military, it's no surprise that we have a high rate of suicide, unfortunately, death by suicide, depression, and having that awareness with oneself, forgiveness, acceptance. Sounds like soft, but really not. It's a power. It's a power that really is a force multiplier, make you a stronger servant, a stronger person, I think, altogether. So how I go about it.
And I feel like that's kind of, we're seeing a shift in that conversation, right? There used to be this, if you're not hustling, like, what are you doing? Burnout mentality. And we're now seeing it shift. I'm seeing things being spread like, take those sick days, take that time off for you, mental health days.
Yes.
I love seeing the conversation open into that space, because I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I don't feel like that was really a conversation that was being had until maybe just a few years ago. And now it's being encouraged for people to do that, to take the time for themselves to, as you say, to fill up your cup so you can better serve others.
Yep.
So that was a great lead into my next question that I wanted to ask about, was talking about that work-life balance, or as you want to call it, management. I think that's a great way to say it too. I always say, I hate this question in a way, because I feel like men are never asked this question. But also it's kind of the undeniable nature of being a woman. It's science. It's something that women want to know about. How do you manage? And it's great hearing different female perspectives on this. And I know we kind of talked about this before we started, but if you wanted to share on how you manage the work-life balance or management, we'd love to hear that.
I think for me, I am not a mother yet. I hope to be one day, but I am not a mother yet. So I do not have to manage the motherhood side, but I'm managing the partner side. I am married, and I think you have to pour into your marriage and into your partner, and you hope that you marry the right person and they're supporting you as you're doing those things, right? And so what I am very intentional about now, and I think especially since COVID and we're doing a lot of working from home, is really setting clear boundaries. So saying to myself, at least twice a week, there is an hour where I know I'm putting it on my calendar and it is my lunch hour. And if I do not schedule anything over it, I have 1 hour that is for me to kind of pour into myself and kind of have that mental health time right in the middle of the day, because I think the boundaries got very sticky with COVID, right? You're home, and so you feel like you can work at any hour and any time and be accessible, and I had to set boundaries. So that's really what I thought worked for me.
I'll be very honest, I am still a work in progress.
Which we love that honesty.
Yes.
I mean, that's going to happen.
I am not a ninja at this yet. I am working towards that. But I do make some, deliberate actions. Like before I came here today, my husband was with one of our toddlers, cuddling with him, and I had this app meditation, breathe in, breathe out, and I can hear them, but that's my space is chaotic, maybe a little bit on my surroundings, but I'm taking that, 5 minutes to just regroup a little bit so I can be here more present. Does it happen all the time? No. Do I try? Yes. My faith really carries me. It's not everybody's practice, but for me, there are days that really, I don't know how I can do that if I don't look up and just say, just help me out here for today, in that sense. And then, in partnership, you mentioned that, being in the military is a high tempo job. You want to do well. My husband also has a demanding job. So a lot of times I give him a lot. You know, and I'm just fortunate that I have that. Not every mother has that, right? That can rely on a partner that can help you. So I count my blessings in that sense. But I don't think that, you know, sometimes we think, oh, I will take this vacation to Cancun and that's when I regroup. I think it's every day a little bit. It's a prayer, it's your lunch break, it's 5 minutes of meditation while your children are around. And that incrementally fills the cup and it prevents, you know, a major disaster where you're completely depleted and cannot perform. I really think that's deliberate daily action. Whatever works for you, that's what you need to do.
Yep. I think that's where I'm at. So I put mine on my calendar, actually. And I'm still a work in progress because I'm a natural giver. But what I've done, so when I know that my Friday time is my time, and actually I'm taking a Spanish class, I was telling you, a one-on-one.
Oh, I heard that. You guys were practicing.
See,
I love that.
so, but I put it on there. So Friday night and Saturday night from 7 to 9 is my time. It's a personal objective of mine, and I claim my space. My spa time is on my calendar, and I have that, 2 hours every Saturday morning. So, and the last thing I'm doing, and I actually heard this from another young lady that said, no is actually a full sentence. It's N-O period. So when people ask me and it's not on my calendar to do, I'm actually starting to say no. That's how I'm creating balance, but that's such a personal question. And for me, I fill up my calendar. A lot of people take stuff off their calendar. I'm just the opposite.
I love that sometimes I want to say no exclamation point, not just period. 2 exclamation points.
Yeah.
Ladies, something too, I think, when we talk about claiming your space comes with the confidence, and we kind of touched on this. But I want to know, where do you get your confidence from? Because something that I've kind of seen within myself and within my friends, and I don't know if you felt this way, is, growing up, we're so used to getting affirmations from external factors, right? Like, you're getting good grades, or you made this team, or you're star of the week, or whatever that may be. And then you get to college where it's like, okay, what school did you get into? Then it's, what job are you getting into? There's just always these external factors that I feel like we grow up feeling the confidence from outside affirmations. But I think too, with growth comes a lot of finding the confidence from within. So I want to know, where do you draw your confidence from? And when you do have doubt, when you get into that place of doubt, how do you talk yourself out of it, or what do you do to feel differently?
Good. I was going to say, I think that mine comes from preparation. So I think that if I can say, I'm the opposite of a procrastinator. Even in school, I was that kid where, like, the professor gives you a paper and says it's due at the end of the semester, and 2 weeks later I'm like, here's my paper, don't ask me for it, I'm done.
Good
and I've
for you.
always been that way. My poor wife, she's like, yes, we are prepared for anything that could happen at any time. But I think knowing that I'm prepared, right? So giving myself that time to prepare for what's to come. And I think very much, especially in my role, even though I'm community relations, I work underneath our communications and PR team. So they have this huge manual of, like, what to prepare for, what could happen, right? And kudos to them, because it was a great kind of guideline to think through, what are the what ifs, and, like, prepare for the what ifs. And so I feel that confidence from knowing that whatever is thrown at me, I've at least done some preparation for something in this scenario. And even if it's not a spot on, I at least feel confident to know that I can run myself through it, because I've done the exercise of at least thinking through some solutions.
Yeah, that's great. I think knowledge is power. I'm a woman of faith as well, so I pray a ton. To make sure, even before our panel, like, wow, these bomb women are gonna be sitting next to me. So what do I say? And I think prayer, I have a playlist that I play sometimes before I'm going into a strong meeting. But I go back to the fact that once you figure out your whole self and being authentic, that breeds so much confidence. My biggest competitor is myself. So when I'm working out in the gym, I'm actually looking in the mirror, because that's the person I want to become, or who I became. So for me, it's knowledge, prayer, and obviously just pushing forward confidently and being authentic.
I think for me, it's a combination as well. Preparation is very important, because at least nothing else. At least I have what I have, and it's going the extra mile. So when I was younger and a little bit more timid, I think that really helped me is, you know, I will always be the one who stayed a little bit up later and I'm most prepared. So if something comes at me, I can respond. And then you start seeing your successes. I mean, there will be failures and there will be very many failures. But then you kind of develop a process. You know, like, okay, this worked before. I was prepared. I showed up. You know, and then you start developing somewhat like the space where you're comfortable, your executive presence. You know, now you sit at the table, and even if you don't really have a clue or not as prepared, but now you've already been through it, and you know if you don't necessarily get it right, is okay. So I think it's being prepared, being confident in your own space, and also accepting that you don't have to be the A player all the time. You know, just take a risk. And if it works, it's fine. And then that confidence keeps building and building and building. And I think for me is what has worked, is taking risk, the experience, that journey. Now I'm a lot more comfortable in my space and a lot more confident too. But if nothing else, fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
You know,
We're going to
fake
stick
it.
to the old saying,
Yes,
right?
yes. Fake it until you make it.
All right. Next, best advice you've received. We talked a little bit about mentors, but I want to kind of pinpoint it on if there's something specific that someone has told you that you stuck by this whole time.
And for me, obviously it was my mom, and it was be you and feel comfortable with being you. So this notion about bringing your whole self to work is so important to me, because there are a lot of times when I didn't bring myself to any relationship as a whole person. So when I got comfortable with who Paula was and I could be me, that was just phenomenal. So it's be you.
I think for me is taking risks, be confident enough to take risk and to be okay. I think this is one I have, I can think of many lessons, but my husband is here and he is actually one that taught me this, to take risks, he's such a good negotiator when it comes to salaries. He's getting a new job and I'm like, you ask for what? How many days of vacation? It's like, well, if you don't ask, you don't get it. Right. You have to take a risk.
Ask for it all.
Yeah, he does. So
Claim your space.
I think I have to say in that aspect that I have, since we've been married, I have taken that more to heart. I have this job today that I have. I actually did that. I dropped my resume and I said, I want this job and I think I would do really well. I don't think I would have done that without that advice. Take a risk. So what if it doesn't work, right? Yeah. So for me, I have many advice along. I have to give credit to so many people, but I think this one is the one that sticks out right now. Is take a risk. It's okay.
Yeah, I think same. I have a ton of them, and my father is a very big role in my life, and he is like the guy that has every saying that should be in like a coffee table book ever, because he's a coach, so he speaks in isms. And so one of his isms when I started to get into my career, which I have taken to heart, is if you are not the guy, then you should know the guy that knows the guy. And it is a masculine saying, right? Because we're saying guy, but we can change that to person, right? To be inclusive, know the girl that knows the girl. But I took that to heart, and it was one of those moments for me and one of those sayings for me that I said, I'm really going to be intentional wherever I work and wherever I am to make connections with people. And so when I meet somebody new, I make sure to ask them their name. I try to look, I mean, now with masks, it's hard, right? When you meet somebody, you only know them from the eyes up, But I tried to have a conversation with them and try to find a connection point. So I may ask them where they went to school or what they studied or if they played sports growing up, so that I can kind of use that as a memory factor, so that when I see them again, I could say, oh, how are your twin boys? Or how's your mom doing? And, so it feels like there's a personal connection, so that if there is ever a time that I decide I want to join the military, I have somebody that I can call and I've really made a connection with. I will not be joining anytime soon, just so the Dolphins know. But
for the record,
but it's just important, I think, to really connect with people and find common ground, because you have it, you really do.
And I thought I had time, but apparently I only have one more. Okay. So kind of to go off that, the next question was going to be, what would you tell your younger self? But I also want to know specifically, what age would you have told yourself that to?
I think for me, 16. That's a critical year. Besides 11, 13, 16 was critical because I think that's when you are deciding what's next, what college you're going to, who your friends are, what friends you're leaving. So I think age 16, and it would have been be you, quite honestly, and it's okay.
Because at that age, you feel like, it's funny when you're a teenager, right?
Yeah.
You just want to fit in, or you just want to be like everyone else. And then as you enter the adult world and the professional world, you're like, how do I stand out? How do I be different?
Right.
It's funny how that works.
I think for me, I don't go back that far. That far actually. I'm a relatively new mom, so I have the twins, 3-year-old, and I honestly thought when I got pregnant that I was falling behind, my peers. And then after the babies are born, there's so much. And I honestly thought my career was over. It took someone who noticed my performance and actually put it on paper. And when I received the performance, I said, this can't be right. Like I have been struggling so much, and does he really think that I am at that level for the promotion, for what's next? And that really lifted me up. So what I would say is, don't worry so much. Don't think that because you became a mom, that now you're managing so many things and you feel depleted in a way that you cannot be a professional woman and continue the career. And once that came, I actually had to go back and take all those courses to get promoted because, now I had that confidence. I knew this could happen, and it did happen. And I'm still in the military. So I would just tell my new mom self, it's okay. It's okay. You can still work and be a mom and be a wife and continue this journey for the legacy. I love when you mentioned that, leaving a legacy for my children, for women and men too. They're younger and starting and have all this, this world to conquer and do so much better than the small contributions I have been able to so far.
I think I would tell my younger self, my elementary school self, that being you is enough. I think I went to elementary school in Connecticut, and I'm not that old, I'm in my early 30s. But I tell this story to say there was a little girl and we were playing, and she stops and she looks at me and she says, "Why is your skin so dirty?" And I don't want to get dirty, so I can't play with you. And the elementary school kid in me went home and got in the shower and scrubbed, and I wanted my hair to be different, and I didn't want to be me in that moment. And I think, my mom, kudos to her, because she saw like what was happening, even though I wasn't saying it, and she was really supporting me. But I think that I would tell that little girl, because then I spent so much time not being me after that little girl said that to me. And I would tell my younger self, like, being you is enough. Like, brown is beautiful, brown is okay, natural hair is okay, and who you are is enough for the world. So I think that's the major thing that I would tell, not just my younger self, but my kids and all of the kids that we work with through Dolphins programs and that I come across, being you is more than enough.
I think everyone has like a childhood memory that stuck with them so much and affected them in some way. It just goes to show you that kids are listening, kids are understanding, and I think having these conversations are so important. I think just not just here, but even outside of this room, having those conversations is so important because you never know what you do or what you might say might make a difference for that little girl watching. And hopefully, I'm sure we're all mentors to girls who again see us in them, and I'm glad you guys had mentors, white male mentors who were great, but hopefully there will be more women claiming their space so that people can have all sorts of mentors.
Yeah.
Awesome, ladies. Well, thank you so much. It was so great getting to know you guys before and getting to sit down for this.
Yeah.
Not as we were ready for like a room, what was it, the risers full of women and that female energy, like making eye contact with people. Maybe some cheers and some whoop whoops. We were ready, weren't we?
For sure.
I was thinking, like, what am I going to do with my arms? It's been so long since I've been in this sort of space.
What's my walk-up music?
Right. But God had other plans.
Yeah,
for sure. As we do, we adapt. We're used to adapting by now. So thank you, ladies.
Okay. Awesome. Great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Clap for ourselves.